Huge Movie Fanatic Nate, coming at you to review yet another movie. I'm coming at you to review the sequel to Ridley Scott's 2012 film by the name of Prometheus. This one is called, I think it was originally going to be called simply Paradise, because that word was thrown around a lot in the movie Prometheus, but this movie ended up being called Alien, Covenant, I think. And Covenant, just like the movie Prometheus, is the name of the ship in this particular movie. So this is Alien Covenant. I think, I don't know, I don't know if they abandoned their whole, a lot of their idea for the sequel to Prometheus with their whole title, with the title that they were doing with Paradise and stuff like that, or if this is just the same idea, just retitled, or if they shifted around ideas. Regardless, this is the movie we ended up getting, Alien Covenant. So I don't think I solo reviewed this. I think back in 2012 or whenever, I think me and Matt reviewed this movie. I can't remember. I don't think I was really doing a lot of solo reviews, if any, back then yet. So I know that me and Matt reviewed this movie, and I think I gave it 3 stars. I rather liked the movie. I saw it once in first run, then I saw it in second run theater, and then I obviously bought the 3D Blu-ray and stuff like that. I actually, being a huge fan of the original 1979 movie, actually liked Prometheus. It was great to see finally Ridley Scott coming back to science fiction at the time, and although there are things about Prometheus that you could go, whatever about, or, and stuff like that, it was cool to see Ridley's, the kind of the alien or pre-alien universe and the sound design and stuff like that from the 79 movie make its way back into the movie. And actually I thought the music was absolutely phenomenal in Prometheus. So long story short, without actually reviewing Prometheus again, I think I gave Prometheus 3 stars, and I probably stand by that. I rather liked that movie, and I absolutely love the woman in it. Oh, actually, well, both Michael Fassbender and whoever played Shaw, I can't remember her name. I was hoping, by the way Prometheus ended, I was hoping that she was going to be in this movie. I couldn't really see what they were going to do with like a Shaw and David adventure for a whole nother movie. This review is going to be just a spoiler-laden review, so if you haven't seen it yet and don't want plot points to be spoiled, you probably shouldn't watch this review. So you can stop watching now, or if you want to be spoiled, keep watching. So I just actually saw this today. It was actually the first time I actually was at a first run theater that wasn't a drive-in. I can't even remember in how long. Probably since, this might be the first time I was at a first run theater that wasn't a drive-in since January of 2016 when I saw Force Awakens. So as you can tell, I don't really get out to the theater anymore because there's nothing much there that interests me, and if there is, I usually either wait to blind buy it or just second run theater it. So on to the review of Alien, what's it called? Covenant. So I gotta be honest, the kind of the pre-title sequence is this kind of cool, whatever. I don't know if he's activating David, this guy Wayland or whatever, where I will admit, very horrible, like old man makeup in Prometheus. The guy Wayland, this is like him, I don't know if he's activating David or what, but the android, the synthetic or whatever the hell they want to call him in this universe, played by Michael Fassbender, which is actually one of the things about Prometheus, one of the many things about Prometheus, along with the character of Shaw, that I really liked about that movie. And so it starts this kind of cool scene of just whatever, like it's kind of a scene about just activation of David, or very newly activated David synthetic individual at the beginning of the movie. Then it kind of segues to the opening credits, and it does this awesome thing where, very much like the 79 movie, the title, and there's just like stars, and the title appears, and on the top Alien, and then on the bottom it's like the letters appear to be whatchamacallit. I can never remember the Alien what? Covenant. I can never remember Covenant. Just remember Ark of the Covenant. So after the bat, it was kind of cool. And then my fanboy, like for the 1979 film, whatever's got really excited when Jerry Goldsmith's score is pretty prominently, like the basic theme, like the and a lot of the Jerry Goldsmith stuff. I don't know. I don't know if it's re-recorded or just the original soundtrack, CD put in and played in the mix or whatever. But this movie features a lot of, maybe not a lot, but a nice amount of Jerry Goldsmith Alien kind of themes, which I kind of liked. I'm not too sure it belongs there or not, but whatever. Just being a fan of that original '79 film, I was just like, oh wow, that was cool. And the movie got going, and I was just like, oh my gosh, and to be honest, having just seen it, a couple hours ago, I can't even barely remember after the credits or it's actually while the credits are going. Oh, I know, David, or it's not David, Michael Fassbender plays at the beginning of the movie, and whatever. In this movie, he plays another synthoid character. I can't remember what the hell his name is, but he's got like this kind of goofy, I don't know if it's a southern whatever American accent in this movie, which is kind of funny to hear Michael Fassbender do this kind of goofy American accent or whatever. So he's kind of the prominent, just like in Prometheus, Fassbender and his synth character is kind of the prominent character in this movie as this other, it's not David, but he's playing this other character on this, it's like 10 years after the Prometheus mission, I think, and there was this scene on YouTube, it's probably still on YouTube, that I thought, from this movie that you can probably still watch, just, type Alien Covenant, I was going to say Alien Ark of the Covenant, Alien Covenant, just whatever, scene or something, and I thought this scene was going to be in the movie. They kind of put it out weeks ago, and where they're just kind of getting to know the characters. It was kind of like a harken back to the '79 movie where they're just sitting around the table just talking or whatever, and it turned out that there's like, I think in that clip it was like there's lesbians and gay guys and all these kind of interracial, now I don't have a problem with interracial, but I'm just saying, all these different couples that were basically, the whole premise of this movie, or at least the beginning of it, is these couples going out to, and they got like 2,000 like no, there's 2,000 colonists or whatever, and a lot of embryos and all this shit. So this is basically just a big huge colonization mission to send out Earthlings to some other planet to ruin and pillage that one over time. So I was disappointed. I was kind of waiting for that scene. And even, what's his name was even in it, the guy who's not in this movie, which I'm fine with because I don't really like him, the guy from, I don't know, Spider-Man original trilogy, I can't remember his name right now, I guess I'll put it on the screen in red letters so you know what I'm talking about, but that guy was featured, I think he was the captain in this clip that's probably still on YouTube you can watch, where they're just yucking it up around the table or whatever, and when this movie starts, like, oh, never mind. You know what? That's probably a scene, like a deleted scene or something that took place before what we see happen in the movie. That's probably like maybe when they were like, just before they got into hypersleep. Because when the movie begins, the opening credits are kind of like going on while I think this new synthetic character, who's not David, who's, I don't know how I'm going to refer to him because I don't know his name, but the new synthetic Fassbender character is waking up. Not all these people. Oh, I know, some stupid, the solar panel, the solar wings or whatever the hell you want to call it, sails extend to recharge this particular ship on its seven something year voyage to whatever planet they're going towards. And there's some kind of incident where they're forced to wake up early. There's some incident where there's some whatever, just interstellar, just shockwave or whatever. I don't remember what the hell. I can't remember every detail on a first viewing. So it wakes them up early, very much like on, of course, the original Alien with the, that's my hand version of a SOS signal. So they're woken up, and I think the kind of the opening credits play over this scenes of them waking up, and the guy from Spider-Man original trilogy's character gets like burned alive in his cryotube at the beginning of this movie. So he actually doesn't. Well, he's got a part. We see a video of him climbing a rock later. So that's his only on-screen time in this kind of GoPro video, if you will, within the movie that he shot to send to his, I think, girlfriend or wife or whoever this main kind of girl with the short hair character plays in this movie. So James Franco, there we go. He's the guy who's featured as he's the captain, and he's actually in this clip, which I've been talking about over and over. That's probably still on YouTube. You can watch that. I was waiting for it. Kind of liked the scene in a way, and I was waiting for it in the movie, and it's not in the movie. It's stupid. I don't know why it's not in the movie. Because to be honest, it would have been a nice, because there's like no character, like just barely any character shit development or any other kind of character shit in this movie. So it would have been nice to have that in the movie or something. I don't know. Anyway, that was disappointing that scene wasn't in the movie. Long story short, they get woken up and they gotta repair the. God, I won't do a beat by beat. Without doing a beat by beat, I'll simply say they get another signal. So many of these movies, like Prometheus, is in a lot of ways kind of almost a remake of Alien. I think I mentioned that maybe in the review of that. And this is kind of a remake of Alien and Prometheus. I mean, they go through the same beats, I mean, it's not, the same stuff happening, but they go through the same beats and stuff, so whatever. Long story short, they get this signal from a planet that's a lot closer, like 2 weeks away versus whatever how many years are left in their voyage to this planet they somehow decided, I don't know how they discovered with a long telescope or what, and decided to, send all these kind of hippie love boat of 2,000 whatever colonists to or whatever to colonize this new planet. So they find one, because this planet that's 2 weeks away with this radio signal or whatever, which we find out is a garbled kind of audio video signal, which we find out I think is Shaw kind of like singing to herself. We find out later or whatever. And since I don't think the original actress had anything to do with this movie, so that's probably why. Well, yeah, I mean, you can't really see or hear the character, which I think is supposed to be Shaw very well because of that fact. But long story short, they go to this planet, which is, I think, a new planet, which, I don't know, I want to say that this was like a planet of the, how you had the first Prometheus was heavily involved a lot, the engineers, these huge, towering, very pale engineer characters. Well, I'm not 100%, I couldn't really tell, but I want to say maybe this planet that this movie takes place on was actually maybe one of the engineers' homeworlds or something like that. But it's all been like, there's actually been like a Holocaust, which actually means like burnt animal offerings to the gods or something like that, which is kind of more fitting to what actually happens in this movie, where we find out later that David, it's kind of cool. I'm going to just spoil everything. So basically, they land on this planet, shit goes wrong. At the beginning, instead of facehuggers, like they just step on this egg, and it's just like a very Earth-like planet, of course, because that's the only planet you can film on to make a movie. And even when they make like Avatar, a completely CG created world, it looks exactly like Earth. So I don't know why you couldn't have filmed Avatar on Earth or whatever, but that's just another story. So they step on these egg things towards the beginning of the movie or middle or whatever, and it's just like tss, and all these like nano organisms like go in this guy's ear, and basically within minutes, like it's kind of cool. Instead of a back burster, originally instead of a chest burster, we get a back burster. So this kind of creates itself way too soon as far as I'm concerned. But I guess we don't know the gestation period of the stuff from the first movie really either. And even if we did, I mean, this is a new kind of thing that goes in through the ear or up your nose or whatever, in this really small nano life form stuff that goes up your inside something. So two characters end up basically having these back bursters burst out of them, and goes to hell. And basically this hooded figure scares them, like these things are like these white pale dogs running around, kind of like Alien 3. All hell's breaking loose because they sent down this expedition onto this planet to see if it's habitable, and this shadowy character with a hood on, robe or whatever, fires a flare and kind of saves them all, and scares these white pale backbursters that are running around trying to kill these remaining people or whatever. And we find out that I figured it would be, and we find out that it's David, and they come across the derelict ship, of course. I can't remember if this happened. I can't remember if they come across a derelict ship before David intervenes. Probably. They just kind of go in it and then come out of it or whatever. But I'm just going on way, way, way too long. I'm just trying to explain what the hell happens in this movie, you know? So, long story short, I didn't really like the first half of this movie very much, and I was kind of like going, oh my god, you know, I was thrilled that Ridley Scott came back to direct his sequel to Prometheus, and then, like, for the first half, I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, the characters, as I said in the review I just did for Kong Skull Island, the characters in this movie are the same old cookie cutter shit. That one character, that kind of overweight guy, wears a cowboy hat, and it's just like that guy in Jason X in space who wears a cowboy hat, and it's just like, oh my god, it's such a cliched. I don't know if any other sci-fi movies have done it except for Jason X in this movie now, but it's just like, oh god, come on, cowboy hat in space, give me a break, but whatever. And the characters are just so whatever, and I think there's a girl from Blair Witch, you know, the movie that came out last year is in it. I mean, she's kind of cute or whatever, but you know, the characters, just like always, are just bland, boring, or whatever. And like I say, if they'd left that one scene in there, which you can probably watch on YouTube, I think it's the scene before they went into cryosleep or whatever, that kind of would have made up, just having that one scene in the beginning of the movie would have made up for a lot, would have helped making up for the kind of the lackluster characters in the movie, because at least it showed just interaction between characters or whatever. So long story short, the second half I kind of liked better than the first half, because the first half we end up getting these like pale, just goofy looking alien things coming out of people's backs and running around like dogs, and it's just like, oh god. And they take refuge in this big, see, the reason I think this is like the planet, or one of the planets from the Engineers, is because it's like this, they come into this huge, you know, David brings them back to this huge dwelling of just these statues and faces and stuff, kind of like in the Prometheus. So I think we're meant to assume that this is a place where the Engineers, or a planet where the Engineers lived, and they're all burnt crusty bodies and all this shit, and like just Holocaust, in the sense of what it's supposed to mean, not the, you know, the yeah, I'm not gonna not the World War II bullshit Holocaust, but what it's actually supposed to mean in the dictionary. These characters walk through this grand hall of just like outdoor arena, or whatever you want to call it, of these burnt, charred, you know, what's it called, humanoid looking characters and shit, and we don't know what the hell it's all about, and then we find out later. I can't remember if David's telling the other synth, you know, there's scenes where between David and the other synth and shit. And anyway, long story short, what ends up happening kind of won me over. I mean, I wasn't digging the first half, but the second half kind of won me over, made up a little bit for the lackluster first half. I'm just going to spoil it all right now. Okay, ready? If you don't want to be spoiled, stop watching. Here we go. Basically, the plot of this movie is David actually killed, he says to the characters that Shaw died or whatever, but it turns out he actually killed her. And I think he might have, you know, dissected her and possibly used some of her there's a scene where I think we see her body, which is all dissected in this kind of habitat David made for himself or whatever. So I don't know if he used some of her, you know, body or flesh or female parts to make the facehuggers. Long story short, you know, David, I think, is basically the person who kind of tinkered together, just from trial and error and all this hybridization of different species and whatever that comes out of this goo that was introduced in Prometheus and stuff. So I think we're led to believe he kind of created the facehuggers, or at least, you know, had a hand in creating the facehuggers, in this kind of cool scene where he leads the guy who took over being captain down into the sea, into this basement thing where it's like you got some eggs, and he's like, oh, this is absolutely harmless, and he's just like opens up and he's like, have a look, you know, and it's just kind of cool, like the deception, you know, going on and stuff like that. And he looks, and it's, of course, you know, and so that is the very first in this newly kind of rebooted, whatever you want to call it, prequel. Ridley Scott's been doing prequel series. I don't know if this is the last one, if there's supposed to be a third one or what. I can't imagine what they do in a third one. This would be fine, to be honest, being a, you know, just a couple of prequels to Alien. I think this would be, you could just leave it at this as far as I'm concerned. But long story short, we actually get to see kind of more like an approximation of, well, basically the exact same kind of thing, obviously all in CG form. On the second half of this movie, which is kind of cool. See, one thing I didn't like about all the kind of monster alien mayhem in this movie is, unlike like Prometheus, actually, I think it had some practical stuff going on, and I don't know, man. If they had any practical gore or alien stuff going on in this movie, it didn't look like it. To me, CG like gore and just stuff like that, and even just the CG having a nothing but a CG alien and stuff. I mean, it completely takes me out of the movie, and it's not realistic at all. Like if you know, compared to like the 1979 movie where it's just like, oh my god, you know, all this stuff of like, it's all real. Like I mean, it's not, it's on camera, and you know, coming out of the stomach, and even the aliens, it's really there, and it's scary. Having having all this CG gore, it doesn't affect me one iota, because you know it's not even happening. It's just happening in the computer. So having completely CG'd aliens is just, I mean, I'm sure they didn't have one. I'm sure they didn't build any, you know, physical alien anything for this movie. I'm sure every moment of it was CG, which completely takes me out of the movie. But anyway, in closing, I kind of like that David is basically, it's funny because in Prometheus in this movie, David is like more of a bad guy than like the alien itself, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's something you really don't expect. Like David has this little bit where he's kind of like, well, the humans are going on a colonization mission, which means they're like, you know, they're dying, and they're, you know, I don't think he said they destroyed the planet they were on, but they basically, it's what he kind of means is like they're going extinct. So it's kind of like they should go extinct. And I kind of, you know, I gotta admit, I kind of agree with David's point of view in this movie, which is if the human race is becoming extinct and dying off, I mean, that's kind of like probably, I mean, it's probably for a reason, you know, or whatever. So I just kind of, basically David is the bad guy in this movie. It should be called David Covenant or whatever, but it's kind of cool in a way how, you know, David is the bad guy and kind of the guy who's been, you know, tucked away for 10 years on this, presumably what I would think to be the, like I say, a world of the engineers. So there was this kind of cool scene where he must have been explaining to the other synth character that he plays, where he basically landed the ship that he was on, you know, him and Shaw blasted off on at the end of Prometheus, and kind of landed this ship. Yeah, it must be a world of the engineers, because it kind of docked perfectly with this big other ship or whatever, and then he just releases all of that, all of the, you know, whatever, that black stuff comes spraying out of the ship, and just, that's what kind of just kills and turns all these people that were in the area to shards and stuff. But you'd think there'd be people in other part of the planet, you know, so that kind of makes no sense, that just because he doused all these people doesn't mean all of them are dead on the planet, but whatever. At the end of the day, you know, the first half was just like, oh my god, what is this? This is like, I mean, it's just like, oh my god, I was really kind of disappointed with the first half, and I was just like, I don't know, the scene where they were repairing the ship briefly, I just thought was just not needed, and I don't know, but I guess it was kind of played into part of the reason how they got the signal that, you know, made them go to this other planet versus the one they were aiming for, and oh god, I just thought, I don't know, the first half for me is just like, oh my gosh, almost just like, what the hell is going on? And I mean, it's just, I found it kind of uninteresting. Unlike Prometheus, I just kind of like, it was more interesting to me, for like, the majority of it was all interesting to me for some reason. Like I can watch that over and over and over, and it's just like, you know, there really isn't a boring part. This, I mean, the first time I saw it, like the first half is just like, oh, and it wasn't until we found out that David killed Shaw and is intentionally doing this stuff because he just wants to kill the human race or whatever. There's just kind of like, oh, cool. And then at the end of the movie, I'll really spoil it. In closing, I'll really spoil this movie out by saying him and David and the other synthoid with the American accent have a fight, and then later on, the American guy lost a left hand saving one of the crew members, so basically that's how we tell them apart. So basically then at the end of the movie, this, you know, synthoid with missing the left hand and talks like the other synthoid that's not David shows up, and we assume it's him, but I'm kind of like, oh, and then later on we get a look and it's just like, oh my god, that's David, isn't it? Long story short, basically they actually defeat the alien or whatever with that kind of scene that you saw in the trailer where it's like riding in daylight on that little ship and they're trying to, escape it or whatever and stuff like that. But only to go back to the ship, and I think it brings back, there's another alien that ends up on the ship, and the scene that happens like with this girl from Blair Witch, the movie from last year, 2016, and this other guy in a shower, and the alien like attacks him and kills him. I mean, it's just like, it's over before it starts. It's like, Ridley, what the hell happened to like your talent? Like, it's just such, taking a Ridley Scott alien movie and making it into like a 21st century like kind of, I don't know, action movie. It's just like wrong combination. Like, that scene just should have been built up so much more in the shower, and then just kind of like slow build into like, oh my god. What the hell? Like that scene in Alien 3 where, that one guy she goes like this and gives him the shot or whatever, and the director's cut of that, the build is even longer and longer. It's just like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And this is just like they're in the shower. It's almost like a slasher film scene. They're in the shower, and then the alien's like, tail goes under the whatever. Long story short, then they blast. I don't know where this other alien came from or whatever. At the end of the movie, they blast it out of space, and it's just like the survivors that are left, they put in a hypersleep, and I guess they're still, at the end of the movie, I guess they're gonna still go on to that planet they originally headed for and go back into hypersleep, and then they're just putting, the synthoid, which is supposed to be the American accent one with the missing left hand, is like putting the last character, kind of the Ripley in this movie, if you will, into the thing, and she's like, oh, I'm surprised that she's not more, I thought she'd figure it out before, but it kind of was a good ending for the movie, basically, where she finds out right when after he puts the cryo thing, not on her face, but locked into the cryo tube thing, and it's just like, she finds out that it's not the guy, it's actually David, and posing as the American accent synthoid guy, and he's just kind of like, he doesn't do that, but you know what I mean. It's just kind of like she's helpless, and she'll probably be forced to fall asleep, I would imagine, not somehow with maybe gas or some kind of whatever happens, but she's basically at the mercy. Everyone on the ship is basically at the mercy of David at that point, and he goes into this one like embryo containment unit at the very end and puts like a couple of little what I presume to be facehugger things in the spot, and shuts it, and it's just like there's a shot of the ship just kind of going away, and it's just like, I think he did something where he lied and he said that all the crew, I can't remember exactly, but he might have said all the crew except for the people in the the 2,000 colonists were killed, or something like that. He made up a lie and shit. So basically this movie, I mean, David is like the ultimate bad guy, and it's just kind of a cool twist. I mean, that way, it's kind of cool that aspect of it, and it's kind of made up for the lackluster first half, although I'm still going to only be able to go 2 1/4 stars out of 4 stars for Alien Covenant, just because that first half shouldn't have been so boring like that for me. It's just like, I was really starting to wonder if this second movie was even going to make any sense itself, or you're going to have to wait for another movie to make sense out of the second one, kind of like how Prometheus wasn't completely made sense. I don't know. I mean, for me, I guess I don't know. I guess it would have been nice to know maybe a little bit more about engineers in this movie. You don't see anything about engineers in this movie except for, just that scene of what I presume to be the whole planet of them that gets obliterated by David when he releases the stuff. So, I went on way too long for this review, so oh well. But just because I felt like I had to just explain everything and whatever. So I guess that's my review of Alien Covenant. I guess, yeah. Yeah, I'll probably see it again if it comes to second run theater. I'm sure it will. I don't know, just Shaw's character was just, I liked that woman who played her in Prometheus, that there wasn't anyone in this except for Michael Fassbender who, he was the best part about it, I mean, character-wise, and would have been nice to have a female part that was as strong as Shaw was for me in Prometheus, but there wasn't anyone, the kind of the Ripley character in this movie, I don't know, it doesn't really, isn't very, even featured very much. I mean, so I don't know, I'm going on and on and on. Thank you very much for watching. If you know, if you watched to this point, wow. Thank you very much for doing so, and as always, we'll catch you next time. Oh!